Mario, yesterday on the show, we hypothesized about the Saints offensive coordinator search.
Yeah, you did. You pretty much called it.
And if it was actually in reality more like the defensive coordinator search and the head coaching search than we realized, or that anybody realized, or that anybody was really giving it credit for. Were they looking for someone to just wow them before going back to Pete Carmichael? And, well, they were, apparently. And Pete Carmichael will be promoted to offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, this makes the most sense. And it's why I was so confused when we talked about Scotty Montgomery, or we talked about Robert Prince, or even Jay Gruden, because Dennis Allen in his intro press conference talked about there being a lot of talent already on this staff and not a need for much change. Talked a lot about continuity, whether it be the culture or the current offense. Talked a lot about that, and it just didn't make a lot of sense when you say, well, Scotty Montgomery doesn't know this offense, and well, Jay Gruden doesn't know this offense, and Robert Prince doesn't. And now Pete Carmichael is just going to continue on as the offensive coordinator, despite everything we've heard about him wanting to take a lesser role. And I think that's still true, but maybe that was, hey, let's find someone who wows us, and then you can. If not, can you stick it out one more year until maybe somebody else comes available? Pete Carmichael, while being OC entitled, maybe has not called plays a lot for the New Orleans Saints, but when he has, it has been very successful. And the year that everyone's going to point to right off the bat, Mario, is 2012, when Sean Payton was suspended and Pete Carmichael called plays. And the Saints had one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. The defense was terrible, but they had one of the most prolific offenses in the NFL. Now, yes, understand, you have some key players that were on the team then that aren't, namely Drew Brees, but it shows Pete Carmichael knows how to get the best and maximize talent when he has it. So go find who your quarterback's going to be now. That obviously becomes the next big question, but I like the move with Pete Carmichael, man. It fits into what everything they were saying. What they were doing before didn't, and that's what caused us yesterday to kind of think, oh, wait a minute. It's not adding up. Now it is.
Yeah, I think it's a good move, too. Unfortunately, it's not really going to matter unless the Saints, I think, kind of address their personnel issues, lock down a quarterback, whether it be Jameis or whoever else, and go get a number 2 receiver to play alongside Michael Thomas. Figure out the situation at left tackle as well. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe you bring back Teron Armstead, maybe you don't. A lot of questions to answer, I think, before we can fairly grade the hire. But as far as the process of it and Dennis Allen, I think he did do his due diligence. I don't think all those interviews were just, a formality. And also Liam Cohen, the Kentucky offensive coordinator, apparently interviewed with the Saints, according to Nick Underhill with New Orleans.football. So they snuck that one in as well. I think it's the equivalent of what our guy at That Boy Wolf tweeted on Twitter. And I can't show the tweet up because it's got a little profanity, but he basically said that Dennis Allen went up to the drive-thru, Arby's, Burger King, whatever, looked at the menu, thought it through, and just thought, you know what, none of this looks good. I'm just going to go home and eat what I got there. That is Pete Carmichael. And it's the safe hire, I guess, but like you said, does have a lot of continuity, and more importantly, has worked with Dennis Allen. So the common vision is going to be there. Like I said, won't really matter who the offensive coordinator is if you don't get better offensive players, but it does kind of fit the theme of what we thought it was going to fit going into this search and keeping that continuity with Dennis Allen's first staff.
And he's also worked with Jameis Winston.
That too.
I mean, there you go. I mean, for me, this clears up quarterback for you too. We thought that the Saints would probably continue in the Jameis Winston direction, but for me, that has to be. And see if you can't get a receiver in the first round of the draft to play opposite of Michael Thomas. I mean, if you can get Jameis back, and I think Pete Carmichael helps, do it. Yeah. I mean, it's Pete Carmichael's in those meetings with the quarterbacks when Sean Payton's in there. He's in all the offensive meetings with the quarterback. There's still a connection there, too. So, for me, I think all your eggs should be in the Jameis Winston basket now that you have Pete Carmichael coming back and continuity and whatnot. All your eggs should be there. And then go get a receiver in the first round of the draft.
Yeah, that would be like a perfect world. They definitely had to address it. We'll see specifically what round and whether or not they draft by need or like by best player available. Like, I'm very, very intrigued to see what the next couple of weeks look like for Dennis Allen now that his staff is pretty much completely rounded out. But as far as something that I think is beneficial for all the players, especially the ones on offense, you don't have to learn a new offensive system. You can continue to build on what's already in place from last season. And hopefully it's with a better quarterback in place, but you can gain chemistry. I think guys like Harris, Callaway both hopefully kind of benefited from what they had to do last year and now build on it with the same scheme, with the same offensive coordinator. And if you bring back Jameis Winston, like you said, then it becomes even more familiar. And this is a team that was built on the strength of its defense last year. Don't get it twisted. This offense needs to be much better than they were last season. But like we said, you think you're going to have a consistent quarterback this season, and you'll have Michael Thomas back in the fold, your best wide receiver. Still need some complementary guys, like you said, but the seeds are in place for this team to be better than they were last year. Not just the continuity of all these coaches coming back, but also a year of experience for those guys offensively that were in a tough position last year.
Now you just need defensive coordinator. And looking at the way this is going, it's going to be pretty surprising to me if it's not either Ryan Nielsen or Chris Richard.
Yeah, Ryan Nielsen apparently is going to formally interview, according to multiple reports that I saw today. Don't know exactly when that interview will take place, but that's not a surprise. We talked about him. We talked about Chris Richard, and Richard's a guy that has a little bit more experience, has been a defensive coordinator before, but Ryan Nielsen's somebody who's been in that building and has really made his way up through the ranks as a coach. Other teams have had interest in him too, not even just NFL teams. LSU almost made him their defensive coordinator. And the work that he's done over a longer period of time with his position group, I think is a little bit more impressive than what Richard has done, because I think Nielsen has done a little bit more developmental work. You saw how far along guys like Davenport have come, David Onyemata, who didn't even play football until like 5 years before he was drafted. So Chris Richard came in and took over a secondary that was already playing really well with Lattimore and with Marcus Williams. Then it's not to take credit away from him. I just think that you should give a young up-and-comer like Ryan Nielsen a chance, because so far he's done a really good job, and the door is wide open for him now with Dennis Allen being promoted from D.C. to head coach of the Saints.
And the other interesting aspect of it is, does Dennis Allen continue to call plays? And I think that might be his easiest avenue, right? I don't know. I mean, he didn't sound like he wanted to give it up, did he?
No, but as a head coach, sometimes you have to make a tough decision, and it might be more beneficial to the team for you to delegate, especially a team now that's in flux without the same leader that they've had for, the longest of time. So maybe it would be more beneficial for Dennis Allen to kind of take more of a CEO role, delegate, and it might be hard for him to give up plays, but again, you got to do what's best for the team. The responsibilities as a head coach are much different than the responsibilities as a coordinator.
If Dennis Allen gives up play calling duties, I think it'll be Chris Richard that gets the job because of the experience already at DC.
Could be.
If he doesn't, I think it'll be Ryan Nielsen.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of those two guys. And same
That's
thing.
what I think.
Same thing. They've done interviews with other people, and for OC, I don't think it was a formality. I think Dennis Allen really thought about his vision for the offense.
I agree,
because this is Dennis Allen's offense. It's not Sean Payton's offense. And yes, you want to keep the good parts, but you thought maybe he would go a different direction. Maybe he disagreed with Sean on certain things, although they ended up working. But it's going to be interesting now to see all the continuity coming back, how beneficial that will be for this team.
I think it was exactly like the head coaching search was, and exactly like the defensive coordinator search is. It was, okay, we know Carmichael wants to take a step back, wants to take a lesser role. If we find someone who wows us, sure. If not, can you stick it out? And no one wowed them. I mean, I really think it is as simple as that. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I mean, with the guys they were interviewing, it didn't make a lot of sense. So that led me back to Carmichael, and there he is.
Yeah, and I repeat the analogy. I think Dennis Allen went to the drive-thru. He was hungry. He was hunkering for some food, and he looked at the menu. Nothing really appeased him. He wanted to go home and eat what was at home. That was Pete Carmichael. And like I said, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be more about personnel. This is going to be a team that's not going to have much flexibility in free agency just because of the cap. Like, you'll be able to retain your core, which is the important part, but they're not going to go out there and sign big-name free agents. So you have to just patch kind of the holes that are on this team. Like I said, you'll get Michael Thomas back. Harris, Callaway, hopefully better with another year of experience. Tight end also seems to be a really big need now that I'm thinking about it. But I do like what we saw from Adam Troutman towards the end there. Before he got injured, he was putting up good numbers. And Vanette also, I think, a better receiving tight end than some people expected him to be. But it's a matter of personnel. Look, on paper, I think Pete Carmichael's a really good hire. He's done such a great job for this franchise for such a long time. I think he's more than capable of handling the responsibilities that come with being OC. But they have a lot of work to do personnel-wise,